In only 2 months, the new Formula 1 season will begin. And even though 2023 will not be a year of fundamental rule changes on the scale of what happened in 2022, there will still be plenty of major alterations. Here is a rundown of everything that will be different in Formula 1 in 2023, including new drivers, different race schedules, modified rules, and new presentation formats. We've already made a video going in depth of the rule and upgrade changes. Want to see that one as well? Click in your top right corner to open it, or wait until the end of the video to see it. Moves being made by Alonso and Gasly. Because of Fernando Alonso's unexpected move to Aston Martin for 2023, the market for Formula 1 drivers experienced a domino effect, which resulted in Pierre Gasly transferring to Alpine, despite having 1 year left on his contract with Red Bull AlphaTauri. Both Alonso and Gasly have already made their testing debuts for their respective new teams, running at the postseason test that took place in Abu Dhabi. There is really nothing to say about the performances, but it sure was cool to see. A new trio of rookies. In the upcoming 2023 Formula 1 season, there will be a trio of rookie drivers competing for the various teams, although one of them, newly signed by AlphaTauri driver Nick DeVries, already has one F1 star under his belt. After achieving an impressive 9th position on his debut in the Italian Grand Prix, DeVries was signed to the Red Bull stable to replace Pierre Gasly. This move came about as a result of DeVries' performance, given his high-profile and controversial departure from Alpine, which the Contract Recognitions Board confirmed had no call on his services in 2023. Expectations are high now that Oscar Piastri will make his F1 debut for McLaren, while there will be an American driver on the grid for the first time since 2015, thanks to Logan Sargent's move to Williams. Hulkenberg. As a result of signing with Haas, Nico Hulkenberg will compete in Formula 1 on a full-time basis for the first time since he left Renault at the end of the 2019 season. During the test in Abu Dhabi, he completed 110 laps, which provided him with the opportunity to become familiar with the team. The 35-year-old driver has maintained his F1 sharpness with a total of 5 appearances as a stand-in for Aston Martin/Racing Point, 3 in 2020 and 2 in 2022. And he'll be expected to provide consistent point-scoring efforts for Haas. Ricciardo and Schumacher get benched as a result of the difficulties he encountered while driving for McLaren in 2021 and 2022. Ricciardo is now working for Red Bull in the capacity of test and third driver. Although his workload won't be comparable to that of a regular backup driver, he will be present for about 1/3 of the races that the team competes in. However, this will be the first time since the early part of 2011, just after he made his F1 debut with HRT, that he won't have a race seat in Formula 1. After being released by Haas, Mick Schumacher will now fill a position with Mercedes that's more typical of a reserve driver. Vettel and Latifi out of F1. Due to the fact that Sebastian Vettel has decided to retire from Formula 1 racing, the grid will no longer have one of the most successful drivers in the history of Grand Prix competition. It is quite unlikely that he'll make regular appearances in the Formula 1 paddock this year, since he has bigger objectives, and his presence will undoubtedly be dearly missed. Following the decision made by Williams to release the Canadian driver, it appears that Nicholas Latifi's 3-year stint in Formula 1 will also come to an end, together with his F1 career. Double the speed of the sprints. In each of the past 2 years, Formula 1 has staged 3 sprint races. In 2023, the number of sprint weekends will increase to 6, with competitions taking place in Azerbaijan, Austria, Belgium, Qatar, the United States in Austin, and Brazil. As a result of the previous year's failure to obtain the team's permission to do this for financial reasons, the cost ceiling rules have been modified to increase the allowance for each sprint event to $300,000. This brings the total to $600,000. As a result of this modification, the separate cost cap limitation that had been in place in the event of damage has been eliminated. It's Honda time again. Or did they ever leave? Given that Honda is responsible for the design, construction, development, and maintenance of the Red Bull powertrain's engine that enabled Max Verstappen to dominate in 2022, it's fair to say that Honda never actually left Formula 1. However, this year, Red Bull and AlphaTauri's engine, which is now officially titled Honda RBPT, is included on the entry list, which means that the pretense of absence has been largely withdrawn. During the previous season, Honda has already worked to boost its brand recognition, and the company has expressed interest in the 2026 power unit regulations by signing up. Revolution of the team principles. Over the course of the winter, there was a change in leadership for 4 different teams. The most high-profile change took place at Ferrari, with Mattia Binotto stepping down as team principal and general manager, and being replaced by Frédéric Vasseur, formerly of Alfa Romeo and Sauber. Andreas Seidel is leaving McLaren to become the group CEO and team principal of Sauber. His previous position at McLaren was taken by Andrea Stella, who was promoted. Jost Capito has also resigned from his position as chief executive officer and team principal at Williams, although his replacement has not been named. France and China are out. The Grand Prix de France has been eliminated off the schedule after being resurrected at Paul Ricard in 2018. China was also slated to make a comeback, but due to concerns about COVID-19, the show has been cancelled for a third season in a row. Formula One is still looking for a suitable alternative, and the revival of the Portuguese Grand Prix at the Algarve track is now looking like the most promising option. Las Vegas and Qatar are back. Since 1982, the Las Vegas Grand Prix has been absent from Formula One. This year, it'll be back. The next incarnation of the competition will take the form of a race that takes place on Saturday evening and begins at 10 p.m. local time. Since the South African Grand Prix in 1985, which was hosted at Kyalami, this will be the first time a race for the World Championship is conducted on a Saturday. In the meantime, the Losail track in Qatar is also back as planned. The venue, which is most known for its long-time involvement on the MotoGP calendar, has also been confirmed as Qatar's long-term home for Formula One as well. Roll hoop changes. Because of the spectacular crash that Zhou Guanyu had at the beginning of the British Grand Prix in the previous year, the technical requirements have been altered to develop roll hoops that are more durable. This occurred as a result of the failure of his single-spike roll hoop that occurred during the collision. The regulations currently in place mandate that the roll hoops be constructed to have a geometry that is more robust, and they also mandate that the load tests be modified such that they are applied at a higher location on the primary roll structure. Floor height changes. The height of the floor edges will be raised by 15mm. This year, as part of a package of remedies to alleviate porpoising and bouncing concerns have been identified. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, or FIA, anticipates that this will result in a loss of around half a second each lap. This does not take into account re-optimization or any other gains, but that it will lower the likelihood of porpoising being triggered. The regulations have also been updated to include a need for wider rear-view mirrors in order to enhance drivers' field of vision. Previous legal designs outlawed. The Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile always intended to make adjustments to the regulations in the event that designs were created that were legally acceptable but went against the intention of the rules, which was to make the cars more raceable. As a direct consequence of this, two of the designs that were run in 2022 have been banned. End plates were intended to be prohibited under the newly enacted standards. However, Aston Martin came up with a creative interpretation of the bodywork radius requirements that allowed them to be allowed back into use. The following year, we shall not permit this at all. Mercedes-Benz also produced a front wing end plate design that was more elaborate than the guidelines were intended to allow. Because of this, the design will not be allowed again until 2023. Well, it certainly wasn't a surprise to see the last two upgrades being banned. Which of the changes are you most excited about? Are you happy that there will be 6 sprint races? Or perhaps you're going to one of the new races we're going to see next year? Let us know your expectations for next year in the comments below.